Hello mate, welcome back to the channel. So it has been a hot minute. We've had over a week of Path of Exile 2 and I haven't made a video yet because I just wanted to take everything in. Like you guys, I played an absolute ton last week and then I took some time off, went home to see some family, traveled a bit, and now I am back. I've had plenty of time to gather my thoughts. And this video is going to be all about my starter build, the Chronomonk. So we had an interesting idea that I wanted to try out, and I'm going to talk to you, show you how the builds come together, what it's all about, see if it's something that you think you might want to play or spec into. I'll give you all of the pros and cons, all about it. Let's get into it. Alright, so here we are in game. This is the character, and we are level 80, we're a Chronomancer. And so what I'll just give you a brief outline of what the build is about, what we're trying to achieve, and what the core idea was, what the concept was, before we go into a map and we look at some of the pros and cons of what we've been able to achieve with it. So, as you can see, we're sort of res capped. Mainly focusing on evasion. We're sitting at 60 at the minute, but that can go quite a bit higher, and we've got about 1800 energy shield. Again, that actually goes up quite a bit when we've got some buffs up and things. The core idea was to take the Chronomancer Ascendancy from the Witch, not just because I thought the Temporal Rift stuff was kind of fun and time freeze, but to try and play around with the chance to reset our cooldown. So we get 33% chance. And the original idea was we would essentially want to build a monk build. So we're using quarterstaff to call it a monk build, but actually it's just quarterstaffs. And we're going to be doing a lot of stuff around slowing enemies and then extending those debuffs and then also trying to reset our cooldowns. So we took a load of energy shield, came up, and then we just started getting all of the freeze build-up stuff, basically. So we take a ton of different freeze build-up stuff. We also grab quite a few dual slots as we head around, which you can put like freeze build-up into, but you can also just put, you know, evasion, ES, you can put cooldown recovery. That's the main thing that we wanted to try and do, was put a load of cooldown recovery. We get this huge skill effect duration node. So this affects things like the curses that we're applying with temporal chains using Hand of Chayula. And this massively slows down bosses, but also helps to keep up our buffs for a little bit longer, and lots of little benefits. So for 3 points, you're getting, you know, 45% increased skill effect duration there, which is super helpful. Because of time relapse, or whatever the, you know, temporal rift, the actual skill name, we don't have to worry as much about our energy shield, the start of our energy shield recharge. So getting this node here is huge. And then we come down and we grab this node, which is probably one of the strongest nodes on the tree, I think. Which essentially, as soon as an enemy's frozen, they have no elemental resistances for hits from you, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And then we just grab some of the evasion stuff. We head into the monk area, pick up all of the power charge clusters. So you get a power charge here, and you're obviously getting some extra bonuses like increased duration, but this is a huge one. You're getting 60% increased energy shield once you've consumed a power charge recently, and we're doing that all the time. And then as well as the +2 that you're getting from this. And then we grab this node and this cluster here, which gives us arguably the second most powerful or joint most powerful node on the tree, which is our power charge spending skills act as if they've spent an additional charge. So when we're charging up our charge staff, we can gain a lot of charges very quickly. It's very easy to maintain. Again, just pick up the dual node. That's kind of an overview of the passive trees. As you can see, we're basically in the monk area. But starting over in the Sorceress does have its benefits. We can get access to some energy shield nodes quite early on. And we're also getting access to some of these really powerful nodes, like 25% of cold damage as extra fire damage. And all that makes sense because we are using Ice Strike. So Ice Strike is our main damage ability. It converts physical over to cold damage at 80%. Quality just gives it a bit more attack speed. And we're supporting this with Ice Bite to get the extra cold damage, you know, faster attack speed with martial tempo. We double up the final strike, which is essentially double damage. That final strike does essentially double damage on the regular hits, so we're getting a nice little buff there. And then I've got close combat. The rest of, you know, the obvious support gems are being used elsewhere. This is a very support gem and socketed, like pressured skill, so we actually have to use some unset rings, and I would like to have another one because we have a ton of spirit from things like our amulet. That just means that we want to be getting as much buffs up as we can. Things like having Lingering Illusion, Ghost Shrouds is another one, and Lingering Illusion is incredible because of that skill effect duration that I talked about earlier. It's very easy to generate power charges, you'll see when we start running through the map. But I'll talk about all the skills kind of as we go through, but the core idea was to essentially play this character with, you know, all of the different kind of monk skills and using frost skills, that kind of thing. Let's use, you know, we do spend our power charges sometimes with Falling Thunder, if we need to, if we have excess charges. But then on top of that, what I wanted to try and do was to use the cooldown reduction opportunities that we have with the Ascendancy and try and use Hammer of the Gods. So we've got a big, you know, big bonk stick here. You know, it's pretty just massive physical damage number. And what I wanted to do is get Hammer of the Gods in there and see if we can, like, essentially, you know, with this huge kind of 2,000-ish increased damage effectiveness for the attack, and if we can reset that on the cooldown. It's a 33% chance to reset. Comes up, like, you know, not every time, but the cooldown reduction that we have from our jewels and from the rest of the tree kind of means that even if we don't trigger it, then we're only ending up with like a sort of 15-16 second cooldown, which is pretty comfortable. That was the idea, and that was kind of, I'll show you some footage now. We finally got there, we got into the late game, we bought ourselves a nice second weapon, we allocated some extra passive points on the tree, and it just kind of didn't happen. I think the original idea was to try and trigger huge ignites off of this, and because of temporal chains, we would then extend the duration of those ignites, and we would just have like an additional damage layer. But I was kind of banking on there being the fire-based two-handed maces that we saw in some of the early footage, where they're not physical damage based, they're actually fire damage based. And for whatever reason, you know, they're not in the game. I'm not sure if they come up later in the different acts and campaigns, or they just couldn't find a way to like scale them properly with the mods. Who knows? They do not exist in the game, so we just have full fizz. And because we're not scaling physical damage very hard on the tree or anything like that, it just sort of feels like we have about the same DPS uptime if we just carried on attacking. You'll see what I mean when we get into a map in a second. That being said, I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing this. It was a really cool idea, but that doesn't mean that, you know, the Ascendancy is, you know, for naught and it was all a waste of time, because Time Freeze is incredibly powerful. I essentially wanted to build this character as a boss killer, and it does that incredibly well. Because we freeze for so long because of our temp chains and our increased debuff duration, that like between freezing them and time freezing them, time freeze goes on, you know, its default is, let's have a look, what's the default on it? Freeze duration is 3 seconds. We actually get this up to something crazy, like I think it's like nearly 7 seconds with all of our effects. You'll see it's, yeah, so basically between freezing the enemy and then using time freeze on them, we get the cooldown resets on time freeze, so then we get an additional you know, like after 30 seconds we can do an additional 7 second time freeze, or if you do it within 30 seconds it just halves it, so we get another 3 second. So for bosses we can really kind of like control them very easily, and this is really effective if you're in a party. I would highly recommend. This is kind of like a really powerful support sort of build that also does a lot of damage. So yeah, this isn't really a build, it's just a guide. I want to talk to you about like where I'm at, how it's going. So let's jump into a map and we'll sort of just like talk through the gameplay and stuff. I think the final thing to say just on the Ascendancies while we're here is I'm hoping that Apex of the moment will actually feel very powerful as well. We're already slowing enemies a lot with Chill. We're slowing rares with, you know, Hand of Chola. We're applying temp chains, hypothermia, and freezing mark. So yeah, we're just like massively negating a lot of their freeze build up or freeze defense. So we don't have that problem of like, you know, certain mobs are hard to kill, which is very nice. But on top of that, you could get time snap, but I don't think you need to. It's another button to press. It's another you know, thing to think about. In reality, just having 20% slow all the time will feel a lot better, I think. So what have we got? We've got a boss map here, and we've got damage penetrates 25%, and okay, yeah, so it's 3 suffixes, but hopefully we get some nice waystones from this. Got an expedition and a map boss. So the core idea is first we have to get up our charged staff, and we build up, we've got 7 power charges. So with 7 power charges, we use killing, if I can hit it, there we go. We use Killing Palm, and we have a chance to not consume the charges when we use it. So there you go, it's just 3 times in a row that's triggered. And now we have all of our extra damage from our lightning on top. So we do shock sometimes, and I think there is an opportunity to get Herald of Thunder into this build. But we're just going to go through, and then we can use our Wave of Frost, or Glacial, yeah, it's Wave of Frost, I think. And you can see we've got a load of, got Deep Freeze and Glaciation and stuff like that. Oh, a T11 already, very, very nice. So yeah, Deep Freeze and Glaciation just to like almost guarantee those. The only time we don't freeze is if there's a ton of more monster life on the map, or if they've got ailment threshold increases. So what on earth is that? So this is a scenario where we've taken a load of damage and then we just use our Temporal Rift, and then it essentially means that we don't have to stress as much. Jeez Louise. That is a lot of damage. It means we don't have to stress as much about energy shield regen, because a lot of the time, especially because we're using evasion as well, we will dodge. Wow, these guys are wild. But this is where another like defensive layer kind of comes in with having freeze. You guys will have seen this a lot, but using freeze is just like I'm not sure if they'll balance it. Maybe it's just doing exactly what it's intended to do. But you can get a lot of defensive sort of just like positional mitigation just from freezing stuff. And as soon as they are frozen, then obviously because of the node on the tree, all of their defenses, elemental resistances disappear. And so that's when things like hypothermia can then also kick in, where we're also getting they're going into the minus 32%. These mobs are incredibly... The random mob picks have not worked in our favour. Okay, so we've got a rare here, and usually the cycle that I'll go through with the rares, clear out a couple of these guys, is we'll apply our Hand of Chola. Let's get rid of this guy. Oh, nice. So as you can see, we can just get back to full ES like very, very quickly. So I think we are. I mean, we're lightning capped. It just seems like these mobs are a little bit highly tuned. Where's our rare gone? Oh, it's over here. So tell you what. So if we apply our Hand of Chayula, we can then freeze time, and then put down our Tempest spell. And you can see, like, pretty quickly how you're very, very safe when you're dealing with, a lot of these threats, because, they're not doing anything. Obviously, there are some effects as well that can still go on. There's some extra, like, rare mods and stuff like that can still do a lot of damage. But generally speaking, they're not really a threat. As soon as you freeze time, and because of the fact that we get the 33%, so we use second wind, so we get 2 uses of our time freeze. So I can just do it again, and because we've got our could have been higher, because we've got our ascendancy node that gives us 33% chance. Well, that goes up to 66% chance to always have 1 in the bank now. Unfortunately, that didn't trigger, but like generally 66% chance. Obviously you're more likely to get it than not. And it just means that our time freeze is up a lot, and we can use it a hell of a lot. On top of that, we've got all this cooldown reduction, which means, again, like, it's just a thing that you have to kind of get used to just, like, using, because a lot of the time you'll be saving it for something else. But there's so many scenarios in maps where you find yourself in a little bit of a sticky situation. Say I'm very aggressive now, I'm, like, trying to round up a lot of enemies. I can use my dodge roll, and you'll see I'm just passively building power charges, and then I can just do that, use our Falling Thunder, and we're fine. And the rare's gone, the whole pack's gone, and now we've cleared that entire pack very, very safely. What I'll do now is I'll just fast forward to the boss, and you can see how the boss gameplay looks. Alright, so we are here at the boss, and so we're going to try and apply our Hand of Chayula, apply our curses first, and then, great, we've got a Mana Siphon, and put down our Tempest spell, and we're going to freeze him straight away. So once we've frozen him, we're doing our damage, we're doing our damage, we're doing our damage, and then as soon as he unfreezes, we're then going to use our first time stop. We put down our Hand of Chayula, our Tempest spell again, and again, now he's just going through, and he's nearly going to be sort of at half freeze already. And then we can put down our second. Oh, I've missed my bell. There we go. And then if we want to, we can time freeze again. Just for safety, we don't really need to, but we've frozen him again, and now all of his damage is, you know, obviously all of his resistances are shredded. And that just means it's easier for us to obviously do the damage and kill him. I forgot that these guys come in. And finally, I'm not sure if they've already adjusted the weightings, but it's a lot. Today just seems like Waystone drops are a lot higher than usual. We've been struggling a lot to stay at like T10. And it turns out that, yeah, they just keep dropping. So maybe this was just a lucky map. I don't know. Right, let's kill these guys. And so as you can see, I've just used my time freeze, and I've still got 2 cooldowns of it left. So I could just freeze these guys. It's very, very safe. So even though you're not getting like a passive buff or, you know, like a, you know, just passive skill kind of style ascendancy node where you're getting, you know, 50% increased evasion rating or whatever the thing is, you are getting a huge sort of defensive layer just by being able to literally stop time. Alright, so that is the character, so that's the core idea. I would highly recommend that, you know, you just level up using Falling Thunder, Killing Palm. That is a very strong combination. Run through the zones, get packs together, and then just drop them. Evasion is obviously very strong, and Energy Shield you will be scaling from quite an early point. And then as soon as you can get Ice Strike, just get Ice Strike. And it's, you know, from there on it's pretty powerful. Tempest Bell, I would highly recommend, you know, don't worry about putting Hourglass on it, and just having the cooldown there, because the more damage multiplier, you don't end up using it all the time. You still need to build up combo to use it anyway. And the more damage between Concentrated Effect and Hourglass is just absolutely insane. I've got Font of Rage on there just for a bit of fun. You could get even more damage out of this if you really wanted to, but you know, you don't really need to. As soon as you put it down, everything dies. It's a very, very, very powerful combination, and I think it was, you know, pretty comfortable. As long as you can get yourself a nice weapon and keep upgrading your weapons as you go, you're going to be fine. The only other thing to sort of like, you know, I guess that I hadn't really talked about is Ghost Shrouds. So we don't have Ghost Shrouds on at the minute, but because I just wanted to show Hammer of the Gods. But I would highly, highly recommend. So we don't have Ghost Shrouds on at the minute because I was just testing out Hammer of the Gods, you know, when we were playing around with that for, you know, the last sort of like few levels. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It was a really interesting idea. I thought it was going to be cool. Maybe when they get some like big Ignite sort of, you know, 2-hand maces into the game, fire damage based maces, then maybe that's something that we could revisit. But ultimately, you're better off just, you know, just attacking the monster with your regular attacks. Once you've got Tempest Spell down and all that stuff, it's much better. So you can take that out, and I would put in Ghost Shrouds. And Ghost Shrouds is very, very powerful. We're sitting at about, what? We're sitting at, yeah, 4,400 ES. It'll actually be a bit higher than this when you're running around because you get some buffs. So at 5k, you get back 5% of your ES as energy shield whenever you're hit, and our evasion is high enough that we're not getting hit all the time. But you basically get like 250 energy shield back every pop, and it comes back quite regularly. So that is just a really solid mitigation there that we didn't have in that map that you were running, which was a, you know, 3 negative mod wrap with Ellie Pen, and we were all right because you can just stop time and do all right. So yeah, that's the idea. I would recommend it. I think it's an interesting idea. You can play around with it. I think we can scale it as well quite high. In terms of like, you know, defensive layering as well, having the extra 20% of slow is going to be pretty good. But, you know, we haven't got our anoint yet on our amulet, and I think for that I would highly recommend going multitasking, getting the cooldown reduction so we can do our, you know, time relapse. I always get the name of it wrong. Temporal Rift more often, as well as getting our cooldowns from all of our abilities that we're supporting with added cooldown things like Exile and all these things that add more crit but give a cooldown, as well as we're getting the skill effect duration, so that's affecting our time freeze as well. If you've got any questions, just chuck them in the comments. I'm gonna like keep pushing this build. This is, you know, by far the, you know, I'm in T10s, T12s. I'm probably sitting around T10s, just about maintaining that. And I want to, you know, keep pushing this. There's a lot of headroom, a lot of ways that we can go with it. I'm going to take off Hammer of the Gods, which means we can get back a ton of our nodes. We can get like probably 5-6 points back to allocate elsewhere that we're just using for stat bumps right now. So we can get rid of these nodes. We can get rid of these nodes down here that just give, you know, 15%, and that's kind of why I took them partly. But yeah, we can, and then we can get into things like, you know, having more defenses here, which will give us 30% more energy shield and evasion rating. All that being said, it's a fun build. I'm potentially going to look at leveling a monk and doing like a chaos damage poison stacking monk. It's an idea I want to play around with. Obviously going Acolyte of Chayula with all of the added damage, and I think potentially having the energy shield leech might work out quite well. I'm not really looking at other people's stuff, what other people are doing too much. I'm sort of like trying to stay off of Reddit, trying to stay off of YouTube a lot and just discover the game for myself, and I've been having an absolute blast doing that. I will give my feedback. I have a lot of thoughts about the state of the game, where it's at, what I think are easy sort of low-hanging fruit wins, and then things that might, you know, require a bit more of a redesign. And as you know, on this channel I like to do a lot of redesign stuff, so I will be doing some designs and stuff like that, and actually, you know, not just giving feedback but also like presenting some like rough design ideas and some solutions, because there are definitely a lot of people that are offering feedback that just feels like unthought out, and I'm not calling out any like creators or anything. I think all in all, everyone, like most of the creators that certainly that I watch, have been very thoughtful in their responses and kind of quite balanced. But you know, just like the cries and stuff that you hear from a lot of Reddit. Yeah, and some of it is very legitimate, but some of it is just really not well thought out. It's just kind of like, okay, here's this problem. I haven't really like tried to understand or like articulate the feedback in a way that's helpful. So I really want to do that for the devs. If they, you know, if they do see the stuff that I put together, then I would like to, you know, present some potential solutions. I'm going to have a lot of fun doing that. I've already got some ideas of just like broad feedback, but then on top of that, revisiting some of like the league mechanics. I think they're a little bit in a bit of a weird state at the minute. A lot of them feel quite samey. They're a bit zergy. Yeah, we've got lots to discuss. So I just wanted to do a video, a bit of an update on the original kind of like my starter build, where it's got to, the things that didn't work so well with the Hammer of the Gods stuff, but actually turns out you just don't need it. The build's really strong as it is, and very, very good, very safe for bossing, as you saw with Wrathbreaker right there. So it's good to be back. Thank you for watching. Sub and like, and join the Discord. Discord link is down below. We've been having really good just like hangouts, everyone jumping in the group chat and voice chat and stuff like that, just as we're discovering the game, sharing items. We've started a guild, so all is good, all is going well. We have not disappeared. I just really wanted to take some time to soak up the game before I start to offer opinions. I hope to see you in the next one. Friends, exiles, thank you so much for watching. Ta-da.